Hey guys, so today I wanted to shoot a video of my top 5 Jane Austen adaptations, I guess you can say. It's kind of either retellings or a play on any of Jane Austen's novels. Let's get started. I match, even though it's hot as hell, I match my wallpaper. First, let's start off with the most popular retelling, probably, maybe, and that is Bridget Jones's Diary by Helen Fielding. And this is a retelling of Pride and Prejudice. I'm sure many people who have either read it or seen the movie have caught the references. I mean, Colin Firth is in it playing Mr. Darcy. So yeah, I really love the first book. I think the second book is terrible. And I have not read the third book because I was spoiled and I just absolutely refused to do it. But book 1 is like a gem for me, and so is the first movie. I absolutely love it. The biggest difference between this book and Pride and Prejudice, I would say, is the Bridget Jones character herself. Lizzie is kind of a well put together, you know, level-headed person, and as many of you know, Bridget Jones is kind of crazy. The next book is another one that I really enjoy, and recently they released a movie for it. And if I recommend any movie to you this year, especially if you're a fan of Pride and Prejudice, it is going to be this one, and that is Austenland by Shannon Hale. This book I read several years ago. I thought it was good. I, wasn't necessarily super blown away. And then the movie came out, I want to say a few months ago. I watched it. I actually watched it 3 times in 24 hours. I have a problem. After watching the movie, I wanted to re-experience the book, and it is excellent. This is the story of a girl by the name of Jane who is Pride and Prejudice obsessed, like the BBC version of Pride and Prejudice obsessed. Like her house is like decorated with like stand-up cardboard cutouts of Mr. Darcy. And she decides that in order to kind of just once and for all move on from waiting for her Mr. Darcy to come around, she is going to get her money and go to what is basically a Pride and Prejudice Jane Austen theme park, but it is a live the experience kind of park. And there, because she does not take the highest end package, she just, I mean, it is a really expensive trip, but she takes the basic package. She kind of gets treated like, I want to say, I don't know if everybody will get this reference, but kind of like a Fanny Price. So she doesn't necessarily get the best experience while she's there, and she's not necessarily, it's not all she thought it would be. It takes all the Jane Austen tropes and kind of makes fun of them in a very sweet and funny way, and the movie genuinely does justice to that. Read it and then watch it. Okay. So I read this at the height of vampire insanity, and I was just really curious because this came out post-Twilight when everybody was writing vampire fiction, and this is Vampire Darcy's Desire, and it is written by Regina Jeffers. This book came out at the same time as another book called Mr. Darcy Vampire. And Mr. Darcy Vampire for me was extremely subpar. I read these back to back, and I was honestly on like a massive vampire kick, and quite frankly, who doesn't love Mr. Darcy, and who doesn't want him to be a vampire, to come at you in the middle of the night, and So this book was really good. It is kind of long, but I want to say I read this very, very quickly. It starts, I believe, after Lizzie and Darcy get married. So that's how the plot unfolds. It's not a pre-Pride and Prejudice, it's a post-Pride and Prejudice. I really genuinely enjoyed this. So if you're into that, if you're into vampires and you would like to read like a twisted Pride and Prejudice adaptation, pick it up, it's good. Next is completely off the wall. I don't know how many of you ever read the Choose Your Own Adventures books growing up, but they were a huge thing for my sister and I. So when I heard that they had come out with a book called Lost in Austen, Create Your Own Jane Austen Adventure, I absolutely had to have it. I vividly recall the first time I read this book, pre-husband, So a few years ago, I was in a long distance relationship and I would travel a lot to go see my significant other. And on the plane to visit him, I read this book and then I reread it again on the plane back, because it is a choose your own adventure, so you can completely randomly choose what you want the character to do, and every time it's a different story. And it is really fun. I will say, one of the times I read it, I chose the Wickham-like character, although it was not Wickham. And the other time I chose Edward Ferrars, the Edward Ferrars kind of character, which is from Sense and Sensibility. And this is an extremely, extremely fun book to read. They did come up with a movie of this. It was, I believe, something that aired on the BBC, so it was not theatrically released. And I did watch it, and it has a really good cast. It has, I believe, Hugh Bonneville, who is in Downton Abbey right now. He plays the Mr. Bennet character, and the main girl who plays, it's not Lizzie, but it's the Lizzie swap character. So basically what you play when you read the book is played by Jemima Roper, who was in Hex, and I absolutely love her. And I watch a lot of British television, so I know all these people. But overall, I really, really enjoyed this. It's so fun. Pick it up. And lastly, this is the absolute 100% best ever adaptation I have ever read, and I have read a lot. This is hands down the one to read. It is a 3-part series, and it is commonly referred to the Fitzwilliam Darcy Gentleman series is what it is called, but each book is individually named, and book 1 is An Assembly Such as This, book 2 is Duty and Desire, and book 3 is These Three Remain. And this series is written by Pamela Aiden. Book 1 takes place in the first part of Pride and Prejudice. So I want to say up until the ball at Bingley's, where, for lack of a better term, the shit hits the fan, that is where this book takes place. Book 2, which is not this one, book 2 takes place in the time that Lizzie and Darcy are apart. So it's the shenanigans that Darcy gets into when him and Lizzie are not interacting in the book. It is more along the lines of a complete standalone Darcy novel. And I have to say, compared to the other two, it is very subpar. I think it has like a sort of mystery in it, if I remember correctly, and I just was not really feeling it. I recommended this book to my sister, and I actually told her just to read the first 50 pages and the last 25 pages in this book, and she would get the general gist of it, and then so just read book 1 and book 3 with those specific pages in this, and it was fine. Book 3 starts when Lizzie and Darcy meet again, when they are visiting their respective friends and family, and it has all the meaty, juicy parts of Pride and Prejudice in it, and it is the biggest of the 3 books and arguably the best of the 3 books. I absolutely love reading the story through Mr. Darcy's perspective. This is not the first retelling I've read through Mr. Darcy's perspective, but it is by far and away the most enjoyable and detailed and superior of them. I would highly, highly, highly recommend this series. I believe this was a gift from my mother, and she had to special order it because at the time it wasn't carried in regular bookstores. So she bought it for me from a British magazine that sells things like this, because I typically get presents from things like that for Christmas from my mother. She like stows those magazines forever and then highlights things that she thinks I would like. It's like that, guys. It's like that. So those are the 5, this is a series, but it still counts, 5 Jane Austen retelling adaptations that I recommend. Let me know if you would like me to do this kind of series more often. I tend to read a lot of retellings and adaptations, so I would love to do them. I could probably do one of Beauty and the Beast right now. That's how many of those I've read as well. I would really love if anybody has recommendations for me of adaptations, because it's a problem. Yeah. Bye!